3:03. I'll call the meeting to order. Quorum is present. The meeting has been duly noticed and is duly constituted. And the first order of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion? And second, thank you. Any adds, subtracts, deletes, divides, multiplies?
Carl, if I could move my item, which is on the back page 2.
C1?
C1B, the financial commentary.
Yep.
If I could move that just in front of the supplementary request, which is 6B. I think it'll give a bit of a...
So we'll make this the new 6B,
Yeah.
and 6B will become 6C.
And I think that'll give the preamble for Pamela's presentation.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? Okay, all in favor? And opposed? That carries. Public participation, municipal grant applications, starting on page 3. There's a recommendation that the usual time limits be relaxed to allow the municipal grant presentations up to 5 minutes per presentation, not including questions from council, and that the information report 2016 municipal grant applications be received. May I have a motion? Thanks. And a second. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. First up, Pam, do you want to drive this?
Yes, I guess first up, Lions Bay Reading Center.
Mayor, Council, and staff. First of all, I must tell you that I am a reader, not a speaker, so I will move on. The year of 2015 brought much anticipation for the library volunteers. We watched with great enthusiasm as our space was modernized and looked forward to producing a calm and welcoming area for our residents. The library reopened officially in May of 2015 with a well-attended social occasion. We had a good response from children and young mothers taking part in playgroup. We sponsored 2 reading events with success and looked forward to a productive year. One concern for the continuation of the library is the lack of adult participation. At our December meeting, our volunteers, some of whom have been involved with the library since 1981, expressed their frustration at the lack of visitors to the library. The membership for 2015 was 160, mostly comprised of young families. At present, we have 6 volunteers, down from 14 in 2013. We feel it is vital to have some younger volunteers who can bring new ideas and vitality to our group and have advertised accordingly with little result. With the 2015 grant from Council, we were able to purchase a goodly number of bestseller adult books, but alas, they too wait to be taken from the shelves. Our children's area is much better. It is delightful to see the young mothers and the kids enjoy Story Hour and also participate in our summer reading challenge. We realize the closing during construction, though necessary, gave our residents a chance to seek other means in obtaining their reading material, be it through a larger library system or digital readers. In meeting with Councillor McLaughlin, he suggested 2 things: that we proceed with a social event in April to mark our 35th anniversary of library service, and also to promote at that time a membership drive. Secondly, that we approach our grade 12 students to see if they would contribute volunteer time to the library for their community service program. In a meeting with Councillor Watterson, we both concurred we must have a better way to communicate the activities of the library and the material that we have available for our readers. We hope to pursue the utilization of a blog newspaper pertaining to library information. It might be of aid to include the library under recreation and culture on the web and increase the information in the municipal update. Communication seems to be a definite issue at the present time. However, I must interject that the staff has been awesome as far as being patient with my deadline distresses and my inept computer skills. The other concern we have is the use of the middle room upstairs, which is a vital part of our area. Firstly, it is the only entrance to the library itself, and it is also a necessary area for our readers to browse and visit socially. I have become aware that there are to be charges applied for the use of the room, which we ask Council to consider removing to allow us to sponsor promotional activities and to make that room an official part of the library. It is our wish to go forward and provide more services for our members. I am meeting this week with Louis Peterson and Karen Jeffries to set up a program with the Seniors Social Circle. Please know that we appreciate both councils and the staff involvement and support we have received over the past years, and certainly accept any suggestions to keep our library a vital part of our community. But we also feel we must be realistic that the digital world has invaded the library, and that after 35 years of operation, we must seriously consider that our library might not survive beyond 2016. Thank you very much. I think you have a submission as far as the budgets are
Yes.
concerned.
It's on page 43 in case council's interested. Council, questions, please?
Yes,
Anne-Marie, you mentioned that currently the membership number is 160.
that was,
Is that down from
yes,
previous
that was
years?
for 2015, and it's definitely down this year. But we haven't made the 100 mark yet.
If we were to do something to bring the library into the modern era, like for example offer a computer carousel where people could come and check their email if they didn't have the ability to do it at home or didn't know how, and could take seminars led by the same 12th graders as part of the community service hours. Do you see there's any call for that? Have you had people say, I wish there was a place to read my email?
I think most of the people in the village do have computers. I know most of the students do, but it would be nice if they could perhaps come in and use the computer to pick up what books we have and have not, and give us an indication as to what we should indeed be purchasing as far as books are concerned.
And are we on the West Van or any library system? We're not linked.
Because we're a volunteer
Yeah.
organization. If we went to West Van, we would have to pay a librarian fees, or not fees, but
Yeah, I was thinking
salaries.
more in terms of shared catalog or at least a catalog.
Yeah,
But
no, we're not. We're strictly volunteer.
okay, Pam. So how this works is the submission is somewhat independent of the submittal, and we vote on these
Yeah,
tonight
later.
or
Later, or even
next
after,
meeting. Yeah,
or even
next
the
meeting.
next meeting. This is just for information and an opportunity for council to ask questions.
Ron, you'll bring up the two requests there in terms of fee usage and the
Yep.
other one. Thanks. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you.
Next up is
Is Lions Bay Native Plant Garden Association?
Mayor, councillors and staff, I'm representing Lions Bay Native Plant Garden, and I've taken over treasury from Mr. Louis, some big steps to follow, and secretary from Pete Ackerman, so I will do my best here. The purpose of the plant garden is to serve the community in all matters related to native flora, including education, which is the prime goal, and preservation and adaptation to climate change. We're seeing quite a bit in water supply challenges this past year, 2015, and of course 2016 is going to be the same. In 2015, we experienced many months of dry weather, and we sincerely thank the municipal works for supplying grey water to keep the plants going. We do not need that much water. Our goal is from 2016 on to now provide education more in the way for our plants to adapt to limited water supply. And really to that end, we're in phase 3 now. We started off in 3 phases. The first phase was finding the plot of land. The second phase, 2010 to 2015, was to develop the plot with designs, pulling out weeds and everything else, which I'm sure you're all aware, and then start to grow the native plants. We are successful to that end, but now 2016 is our educational phase. And we're looking to raise money to commence that education. And plant growing and selling, we propose this year, hopefully, to start a small section in the garden that we can grow native plants, local plants to sell, and or even place in boulevards around Lions Bay. We'll continue with the annual sale to promote funds, and the May Arts Walk, and then this year the Christmas craft sale. We will complete the watering system this year. The project was delayed due to neighbor activity, and we also need to do some remediation work from this activity. We're not sure if our neighbor is going to build up some of the soil that's being lost. So we're seeking funds to handle that as well. That's it.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. Council?
No questions?
I have one or two, but I never like to speak first. I'm always disappointed that I always miss the native plant sale, because I never seem to see the promotion in time. When is it? And I guess what I'm saying is, please make sure that that I, in fact, because I'm the one who writes the mayor's piece, get to know about it in good time, so that we can, so that I get first dibs, and the rest of the village knows as well.
The native plant sale is usually in April, and it's been quite successful, but we were late in getting that notice out, and to that end we're working with the Arts Council this year to have flyers around Lions Bay. And
Okay,
then
that's
we
good.
have another plant sale on the Art Walk, which was very successful last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'd suggest that, you know, that's a real money spinner potentially. You could actually turn a profit on that thing, but that's neither here nor there in terms of the grant request. Ron, you
For both you, Carl and Caroline, you might consider pre-sales to assure that sales are done deal and you've got your name list. It takes away from the spot in time.
We could probably do that on the web page.
Mhm.
We're only doing this web page about every other month, but it's something to certainly consider.
Well, you've got your first guy on it.
Yes. So it depends on what's out at that time.
You just mentioned a webpage. Is there a native garden webpage?
Yes,
up and
there
running?
is, and Mary and Val prepare it and submit it to the office, and they kindly set it up for us. And it should also point out that we've now become an association, which we were not before. That completed this year. We're just waiting for the approval, and this way we can apply for further funds, which it was quite limited before.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, Caroline. Thanks very much.
The events committee?
Yeah.
After you've done here, can you bring my child home from school?
Sure. Dan's actually bringing my other two back by bus. He wants to join
No,
me in
he's
the long
at the
haul.
community centre, so I'll have to go and fetch him.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. We should have coordinated. Hello to Mayor and Council and staff. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Kate Pratt, and I am here representing a group of 12 women in Lions Bay, and we are collectively the events committee. It's my third year as a member of the committee and coming into my second year as chair. Our group runs 9 events throughout the year, which I believe are one of the cornerstones of village life and a big contributor to defining our community spirit and cohesiveness. Many of our events have broad appeal throughout the community, like Polar Bear Swim, Canada Day, and the Halloween fireworks. Some others are more family and kid focused, such as the Easter egg hunt and the Halloween haunted house. Quite often we do think of growing the calendar beyond these 9 events to include others, but as we have other groups also running events through the calendar year along with family events, we feel that too many more may result in lower turnout and event burnout. That being said, we did successfully add 3 new events last year, which included the Halloween dance, games night, and the Lions Bay's Got Talent. And the goal of all 3 of those events was to expand our reach in terms of a variety of age and demographics throughout the village. Our proposed budget this calendar year is $6,600. One key item not included in that budget is our liability insurance, and I've been working with Pam and Peter on securing that for the events committee. We do have our events covered, which are hosted at the hall, but when we are hosting something down at the beach, we don't have any insurance coverage for that. We received $3,000 in cash sponsorship, for which we are very thankful for, from How Sound Marine, Super Safe Fuels, and Dale and Tyra of Remax Realty. Last year, thank you to Councillor McLaughlin, we also received sponsorship in kind from Windsor Meats, which spared the events committee perhaps the least fun and most onerous task of the year, which is serving pretty much what feels like the entire village lunch for the day on Canada Day. So that was a huge support. What the grant has allowed us to do that we received last year allowed us to diversify and grow events which had been run for many years on a shoestring budget. We are now able to fully fund the fireworks budget, which in years previous, what the events committee could contribute was topped up by the firefighters themselves. We were able to purchase a portable speaker and microphone, which is hugely popular throughout the village and goes out to many events. We also now have an email system which helps support our database. We have just over 300 emails, and so now we can have people unsubscribe and follow all of the legislation we need to on that. Before we had the financial support of the village, it was not possible to create bigger events, and it allows a cushion that permits us to take on larger budget items. For example, the Halloween dance cost just over $4,000. We were able to hire a DJ, rent lights, etc. And in the end, with ticket and drink sales, we brought in over $3,600. So the event didn't actually end up costing us very much, but we couldn't have committed to suppliers and hosted an event such as that without receiving a grant. This year we may look at expanding some of the fun and games which we do at Easter and Canada Day, and we will be repeating the Halloween dance, and perhaps in the near future we may be able to add something new to the Lions Bay calendar as well. So I would like to thank you for your consideration of our grant application, and hopefully I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Kate. Council?
It's not financial, what about burnout of your committee? I think you used the word burnout.
Yeah,
Always ask a busy person if they'd like to do more.
they usually say yes.
And they usually say yes. And just a general question, this isn't about your applications, more about the committee. Where is your future short term, and in what place? Not that you're
Me
looking,
personally, or
not that you're looking tired, but,
No, I'm not tired or not at all.
well, let's say you and your cadre of key
Well,
lieutenants.
Well, if you look at the previous events committee chairs, I'm pretty young blood because Brigitte and Heather, I think, hung in for, 7, 8 years respectively. So I'm not sure if anybody would let me bow out soon, even though I have no inclination to do so. And to be honest, I think there's probably a couple people who have been on the events committee for many a year who perhaps aren't going to be willing to make such a big time contribution, but are happy to help out as we need volunteers at events. And we have had quite a few new people join up over the last few years, so I'm not too worried at the moment. We seem to be okay,
Thank you.
but more help is always welcome.
No questions?
No, I think your communications budget seems to be adequate, because certainly, unlike the native plants, I always know when the Halloween dance is.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't really be saying, because I'll get lynched by the financial department, but are you sure this is enough?
Yes, I'm sure this is enough.
Yeah, one outstanding is just the insurance, which we're
Yeah, so-
discussing, but
Is that something that we can piggyback potentially, or we'd have to somehow come up with more funds for that?
there would probably be an additional request for that,
Okay.
but we're trying to get the insurance, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, last year, as an example, we did have insurance for the Easter egg hunt in that event, and I think it cost us about $300 for that one event.
Yeah, it's not insubstantial.
Yeah, so between that and Canada Day, which I failed to get insurance for, I'm not sure how much that would be.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Kate.
Okay, thank you.
Who's up next?
Oh, sorry,
Pam?
senior social service. Louis? Senior service.
Hello, Mayor and Council and staff. I'm here to make my presentation about the Lions Bay Senior Social Circle. And I've reduced my 5 pages to 7 lines. You'll be pleased to know about that. Anyway, number one is, our plan is to carry on with the, or to expand even the program that was started under the UBCM grant last year, 2015 one. So a little while ago, we decided we would need a new title. So we are going to call the Lions Bay Senior Social Circle, but we will emphasize social circle and we'll try to forget all about the seniors part. We will have a new logo, which I think you've seen in the homework that I gave you, the 5 pages, 4 pages. And we decided we should become an unregistered society to begin with anyways. The original application to the UBCM is shown in Appendix 1 of the presentation that I think you've all got. It's on page 2. It was very ambitious on the part of the previous council. It had a large number of ideas, which were very good ideas. So what we decided to do early on was to have a survey to see what the residents of the community would like. So we reached out, we did a survey, and out of that, a number of ideas came to the surface, and one of these that a lot of people were interested in was the idea of health-related activities, actual exercises, and talks about health and food and things of that kind. And that survey I mentioned on page 3, showing what came up to the top and how the various things panned out. And then on pages 1 and 3, I give you a summary of what was done in the 2015 program. We selected the things that appealed to the residents. And then on page 3, I have a small list of things that show where we sit in relation to the community at large. community and recreation is covered by a number of people, and I give a lot of credit to the events committee for the many things that they do. So we, of course, have tried to avoid doing the same sorts of things to a large extent. We want to collaborate with anybody and everybody, the library, Anne-Marie, the events committee, the Parents Association, whatever, so that we all work together for the same end, and that is to provide the community with recreational activities and other items of interest. The budget is on pages 2 and 4, which is where you come in, and we hope you will take a good look at it and help this project to continue in 2016. We do no longer have UBCM grant, of course. There is a little bit of a carryover from the 2015 grant, but the major money will come down from the municipal grant. What we will try to do at a fairly early stage, once we know where we stand financially, is to have some kind of a kick-off event in the village that we hope will attract a lot of people, and we have to work out what that will be. Maybe we'll have a champagne or something of that kind, and you all will be invited, of course. And at that time, we'll have a survey to find out what, and engage with the community to find out what the major interest would be. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have from the presentation that you've had a chance to look at.
Thanks, Louis. Council? I've got one or two. Louis, the Tai Chi, $2,600. What's your sort of average participation in a Tai Chi session?
Well, it's been growing, and today we had at least, I think, 19 or 20 people came. The average participation, I'm not sure, John can answer that.
Probably more 12 to 16.
12 to
something like that.
16. Of course, we are wanting to promote this as much as we can, because it is a very appropriate event in the village, because it addresses the exercise, the meditation aspects of Tai Chi. So there's much more to it than just exercise.
Thank
It's a part of Chinese culture, which of course adds interest to it as well. Yes?
Louis, so currently this program is being coordinated by Karen, but she's no longer going to be doing that
we
in the future.
recognize that,
So
yes.
who would, is there a plan of someone else taking?
Over the
yeah.
coordination?
Yeah.
I wish I could say yes, and that it wouldn't be me, but what often happens is that things fall to a small number of people, and for a long time I said I would only be a pro tem chair, but they would not accept that, because I know that the pro tem chair becomes the chair, and the chair generally gets to do it. And I'm quite happy to do a fair amount of work, yes, and interact with the office.
So you'd be willing?
Advertising is very, very important. Communicating with the public is very, very important. And I would say that that needs improvement over what was done last year.
Well, yeah, we recognize that as well. And so, one of the items in the main budget is around communication. A poster printer, new notice boards, new sandwich boards, which will all be part and parcel. So, a lot of this stuff sort of hangs on each other. So obviously, there will be a lot of, it's not even in kind because there's no charge for it, but
that's very good.
It will all be, the rising tide will raise all the boats.
Yes, that will be great. Yes, we've talked about communication quite a bit, but we haven't finalized exactly what we'll do. But there's a number of thoughts that we can bring to bear on that whole topic.
Great, thanks, Louis. Anybody else? Ron?
My question's for Peter. Embedded within this group's application was assistance from the office, which without Karen, and I think it had to do with postage and communication and some stuff like that. I wonder if the administration observed this and had a viewpoint on this, whether it could be accomplished.
I haven't delved into that to any degree, really.
Or to quantify it.
Or to quantify it. it's something I would have to review and look at in terms of what we can do, and perhaps speak to Louis about what options
Yes,
exist.
we did put down for publicity a figure of $600, and we did have a conversation, John and I had a conversation with Pam about our budget a little while ago.
Mhm.
But we're happy to discuss things with you more and more as time goes
Okay.
on.
Yeah, we talked about just the advertising. They would advertise in the municipal update, and if they needed photocopying done, that was sort of the extent of the office assistance that they would need, and it seemed okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of promotion, you know, we don't have a protocol put in place yet, and we will obviously need to be doing that this year, sort of starting soon. As to how you would go about getting a poster done and mounted and taken down and, you know, all that stuff, we haven't thought this stuff through completely yet. But yeah, okay, so I get what the officer's contribution would be. You know, at this stage, we're trying to get a sense of where it fits into the village ethos and the fabric of the village, I suppose. So I think that gives us a very good understanding, to the extent that we didn't know it already.
One thing that occurred to me and maybe to other people was that as an unregistered association or unregistered society, we may be able to attract sponsorships from elsewhere. And the other thing would possibly be to have a better website link to the council as to what our calendar would be like, our program would be like as it develops through the year.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a registered society with a link, that's the Arts Council, which is a registered.
Certainly, we can. We also need to talk about the web
Not-for-profit.
promotion. Yeah, we need people to know that if they go to a certain spot on the website, they'll find what's happening with the senior circle. Thanks, Louis. Next up.
The Play School Association.
Hello, Mayor, Council, and staff. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today on behalf of the Play School. My name is Kristen Reynolds, and my son John started his first year at the Play School this past fall. The Play School is the oldest running preschool in British Columbia, and its objective is to enhance the lives of children, their families, and the community by providing a safe, caring, and supportive environment for young children to learn and grow. The program has 9 core elements: arts, music, science, social studies, group projects, gross motor skills, literacy, and field trips. I think it's really important to note about the Play School that it's run by parents and guardians as a nonprofit association, and the parents and guardians are entirely responsible for volunteering to keep the school running, which includes being part of board of directors, committees, and organizing and hosting events. I emailed our slides earlier, which just includes kind of the hours of operation for the Play School before and after school care program and the after school care program. Our grant request is $6,538, and the grant will be used to pay partial salary costs of our early childhood educator, Trina Clark, who's fabulous and has been a wonderful addition to the Play School. In addition to Trina, we have, including Trina, we have 6 members of staff at the Play School, which costs just over $77,000. The payroll has increased 28% this year as a result of increased enrollment, which is wonderful. Our enrollment's increased 39% this year over last. The grant will also go towards rent for the Play School facility. Unfortunately, the subsidy that we received from school district number 45 was canceled, so our rent's actually gone up 99%. So we previously paid $131 a year, and now we're paying $13,000 a year, and that includes rent for the Play School and the after school program. And then I think it's important to note that the Before Care program is actually held at the Village Hall, so our programs do contribute to the village. We pay $32,000 in rent to the village every year for the Before School Care program, which is 6 hours a week, so 4 days a week. And then the grant will also go towards purchasing consumable supplies for the program, so we spend about $1,500 a year on those supplies. The annual expenditures forecasted for the Play School is $115,000. And our enrollment, which is set at market rates, is only $85,000. So that net difference of $30,000 is completely made up of grants and fundraisers. And grants really do make up the largest portion of that. So we've applied for the gaming grant, we've received the CCOF grant, and done our application for the village grant as well. I think it's important to note with the hall rental, the play school and village both had to pay for upgrades to the hall to meet coding and licensing requirements. With the 4 school care programs spent approximately $1,500, with the village picking up the balance of about $2,200. So we really appreciate the contribution of the village to make that happen. So then the play school benefits to the community. So it's an extremely valuable, attractive asset to the village of Lions Bay. My family, we've been here for just over 2 years, and in addition to the beauty and the close-knit community, the really big seller for us in deciding to move to Lions Bay was the play school and the elementary school. It fulfills the community's need for group childcare for children's ages 2.5 to school age. And what a wonderful way to funnel children into the elementary school. The majority of students in the play school go on to enroll at the elementary school as well. As a parent, finding quality and trustworthy childcare is a very important decision for families and can be quite stressful, as well as a costly expense. As BC's longest running preschool, the play school provides a safe, caring, and supporting learning environment and an early educational experience that is reputable and highly recommended. I've talked to many members of the community that had children that attended the play school 20, 30 years ago, and they still speak so highly of their experience there. One individual in particular expressed that her children are in their 20s and they still keep in touch with the children we went to the play school with, and they're all over the world now, but they're still quite close to each other. In the presentation, I provided a chart just to give you an idea of the cost of the play school if your child was involved in the before school, the play school, and the aftercare versus the average cost of a group child care facility in Vancouver. So with our program, families stand to save about $2,400 a year, which is quite significant for families, but our rates still remain competitive. Any programs for children and families offered within the village add to the affordability for young families and help with the skyrocketing across the village that we all feel. It's a huge requirement to attract young families to the village to have the play school. In speaking with a number of realtors that work in Lions Bay, this is one of the biggest selling features to attract young families to move here. Additionally, the play school connects families and the community, which is a critical part of what makes Lions Bay the close-knit village that it is. It's what attracted my family here, and now having my son in the play school, I can say we feel much more at home here and much more connected to the community. It also promotes volunteerism as all the parents volunteer, but then that trickles into the greater community, which is what makes Lions Bay the wonderful place that it is. Many of our parents, while others are on the events committee, we also volunteer with play group and other areas in the community. And what a wonderful example, I think, for the children to see their parents being so involved in the community. The Santa's Breakfast is another event that really, it's a fundraising event, but the money that we pull in from that is quite minimal. It's really a way for the play school to give back to the community and to bring everybody together. This year's event attracted a few hundred people, so it was quite successful that way. And then where we can, the play school participates in other community events. For example, we participated in the Remembrance Day ceremony this past year, and I'm sure that we will again. So thank you for the opportunity and your consideration on behalf of the play school, children and families. So if you have any questions.
Council?
I have several. Thank you for the excellent presentation, and thank you for the slideshow that you sent electronically. It was very much appreciated, very clear. Just a couple of things. And I'll ask them all in a row, and then I'll come back to them to give you a chance to think them through, and Mayor Carl might have a thought. Firstly, the school board, I get that they've gone from 0 to 13,000 in one easy blink. If you could tell us what arm wrestling you've done there, or whether we should put the mayor onto this, or maybe that's already been done, that's one. If you could give a general number of how many families with children are actually there. I mean, if you've got one child or three, or one family. And how many children are in the before and how many are in the after. And the last one, which you may not have the answer to, but it gives us a little bit of lead time for other choices. And without going through the package, you probably know the number. How acute is your cash crunch? That's a pretty big number for your group. We're not running on an account, it's called a school year, if I've got the dates right, from Labor Day till June the 30th. We're now into February, and you've got 4 months left before the kids are at Central Beach. So where does the rubber hit the road in your need? So I'll go through them again if you like.
Well, I think here's what I would
Yeah.
have.
Okay.
I'll stand up and
And, and
Okay, you're gonna
a
have
close answer is okay.
That's okay. You're gonna have to refresh my memory. So the first one was about the
Okay, the 13 grand for.
and the school board and how much we've wrestled with them.
Yeah.
We had several meetings with them, and it became quite apparent that the school board, we're grateful that they're continuing to fund the school. And further wrestling, I think the general consensus was that we didn't want to be pushing them any harder than they would. And as you might have known from news articles around the province, that there's school closures being threatened left, right, and center. West Van seems to be in a better position than most districts, but I mean, certainly in many districts, having a school of this size that would be continue to be funded. So I'd say that's a provincial issue, and the school board has made it really clear that they are unable to continue to support the program in that way. So several meetings, and we backed off when we felt that was appropriate.
Thank you.
And the second question was about how many families?
Yes, how many families, and then how many children in the before and how many children in the after?
So, well, okay,
More or less.
So the preschool, there's 18 children registered, 19 in total, and I'm thinking there's probably about 15 families of that. So there's a couple where there's two, but many times there's maybe one child in the preschool, and then one or two in the elementary school, or one at Glen Eagles and one in Lions Bay and one at, so it sort of staggers that way. So yeah, their siblings maybe were there previously. So about 15 families off the top of my head, and 19.
And how many separate children?
19.
19.
Yeah. And it sort of ebbs and flows as well with, we get people sometimes coming from Brunswick Beach, and we've done a lot to kind of recruit people from Furry Creek, from Brunswick, from Ansel Place, and we do get kids attending for sure. This year we've got a couple who have come from Brunswick and in the past. Anyway, so we do continue to also try to promote the program to our neighboring.
Brunswick or Britannia?
Oh, sorry, Britannia.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing efforts have really been stepped up this year. Yeah.
And the cash crunch calendar year, rubber hitting the road.
That I would probably have to get Dave, our treasurer, to set you to get an email response to. But I would like to note also that the even a partial contribution to this total that would be done in kind in terms of the rental on the building, especially considering some of the out of pocket expenses that we incurred in shifting spaces. But that even some portion of that would go.
Likely whoever the financial person would know the answer to this.
Absolutely,
So
we can have him
just
email it to you.
send it to Pamela
and
Financial.
council. Yeah.
Thank you. Again, compliments on the presentation.
The ask here this is a cash ask, or is this including an in-kind ask?
It could definitely include an in-kind ask on the rent that we pay to the village for the before school program.
But that's not in the 6,538 number, or whatever the number is. Correct?
Yeah,
That's cash
because
outlay.
what they're saying is,
If
you could do a combination of a rent, although it wasn't in here, that could be an option as well,
So it's either or.
or a combination.
I mean,
Combination.
if
Combination
we
is
take
our
the cash
answer.
from you and give it back to you in the form of rent, or
Yeah.
if you just waive the rent, yeah.
So
Well, yeah,
if we waive the rent, we cut it in half.
Exactly. If it's an unused utility, the marginal cost to us to give it to you for use is free. So you know, I fully agree this is a vital aspect of the current and future community. Speaking as a 2-year treasurer of the preschool, I know. It's actually much bigger than a lot of things that run in terms of payroll, for example. Okay, thanks. Somewhat apropos, but not exactly. What's the current state of play on the early years facility rework?
On the early years facility rework, it seemed, we were definitely under the impression that as people submitting, that the province is interested in funding childcare facilities that are going to reach a lot larger number. Like the bottom line is the numbers, because they want to stand up and make a presentation saying we've created X number of play school spaces. So the cost of the build for us compared to the number of spaces that it was creating, I don't think really fits within the province's guidelines. The document is there and the document stands, and it could be taken to other donors, definitely. And I think the feeling was that if we were to go that path, there would be people who would be willing to help rework the document, but the feeling was that they wanted to find out first if there was donor interest. So before reworking the whole document for another pitch, you know, when you're guessing at what the donors might want.
What the drivers are.
Yeah, so I think that the feeling was, you know, if someone were to go in principle with that document and say, we were looking for this and we're looking for other sources of funding, and the donors came, and prospective donors, I should say, came back to us and said, well, we'd be interested in it if you rework this, that, and the other piece. There would be people who would step up to help with that, but only once there was an initial interest, so it didn't feel like we're just, you know.
Okay, yeah, got it, thanks. Yeah, I'd encourage you to proceed with that process. As you very well know, I'm very keen to help. And that is the approach, that is the right one. There's a cash component to that as well,
Right.
in terms of operations and investment too.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Get the picture? Thanks, guys. Pam, is that it?
Yeah, just that's it. Udo was not able to come for the Arts Council, so I just said if council had any questions, then I would pass them on to her.
Okay, fantastic, thanks.
And I had just actually noticed on their P&L that it doesn't add, so I have to go back and they've
did that by eye?
misrepresented the grant. Actually, someone pointed it out to me.
Okay, thanks. So,
So the purpose is really just to get information
Yeah.
on the municipal grants. There's a report later on where we see it all together, what the total requests are. And
so
then
we've
there was an
already moved to
opportunity
receive your report, which is on page, what is it again? Remind me.
The actual report was on page 3.
Oh, is it on, it's at the beginning? I thought it was at the end. No wonder I couldn't find
Well,
it.
there's an additional report, but this report was just receiving the report on the applications
Okay.
and the presentations.
So we need another motion for the information report.
Okay, so that is that the next item on the agenda?
Yep.
I think we did this together, but I'll go for a second
So,
motion.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I did do them
Did
together.
both of them.
Okay, so we've moved and resolved to receive. Thank you. Anybody who wishes to make their escape may now do so. See you guys.
Thanks, okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Do you want this just,
Was that for escape?
Did you get it?
You leave it too, eh?
Yeah. I was making my
I
escape.
wasn't sure.
Oh, here. Take room.
Actually, I'll take some of this. Anybody else?
Clear the room.
It's very hot in here.
We watched the door open the bed.
You can also switch on the air
Nice
conditioner.
day. Nice day. No, leave it go.
Yeah, let's crack it open. Yeah, the problem is that those people sitting there get very cold then.
Those people as in danger.
Yeah, it's just warm here, we're on the hot air.
All the hot air, yeah, all the politicians.
Anne Marie's giving me her
Or is it the
speech,
accountant?
so
Oh,
John has got
that's what we want to be.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Great stuff.
I know it was mentioned that if there were any questions of council for the Arts Council, that we would take them back. Were there any? Did anybody have any questions?
No, I mean, it's pretty standard application. I think, you know, we get it.
Okay.
Although, yeah, you know, I may have had a question around the number. It's a high number. And the justification has always been that they have the highest membership of any society in Lions Bay. So, yeah, I mean, essentially, we're just spreading it around quite thinly, quite frankly. This tax dollars going back to the community.
Yeah. They did give a breakdown for this year.
Yeah,
The
no,
grant
it's-
request. It looks like
It's
a
actually a
big.
pretty thorough presentation.
Yeah.
Well,
What
they
was
have.
the
Anybody
banners?
that's bumped into Uzi accidentally at the post office gets that every time. You know, she knows you're on council, she's gonna give you an earful, so, good. She's very much behind it, so it's good.
I did have one question, and that is these things are currently called the municipal grants. Were they not at one stage called community
They're
grants?
called community grants.
Yeah.
How did that transition take place? I don't think any council would have gone for a change to municipal grant.
I don't recall the change. And we changed them, actually, you know, it may be in the vernacular of the paperwork, it was changed in the paperwork. I mean, we're not filling it out, so I never really thought about it. But I mean, the paperwork is ramped up for the last 3 years.
Do we want to consider a formal name change to community grant, given that that's what it is?
In my eyes, it makes sense, but it always has. It's just, you know, I never understood why all of a sudden it became municipal.
Well, I think it adds to the sense of community by calling it what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's just bring that tonight then,
Oh, sorry.
and we'll debate it.
I think it might have got changed just because it's the municipality giving the grant, so it's a grant from the municipal.
Yeah, I can see how it may have occurred, but you know, it's a branding thing, right? Okay, so we'll move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of the meeting of February 2nd, starting on page 95. I believe I had no changes. I didn't. Anybody else?
I didn't change.
None. So a motion to approve and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favour? Opposed? That carries. Beautiful. Moving ahead.
So, Carl, I have a quick question with regards to the minutes. Is it because we don't have a closed meeting today that we don't have the minutes to the closed meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because we can only approve them in a closed meeting. And it doesn't make any sense to have a closed meeting just to approve prior minutes. So those will carry over until the next time. Business arising from the minutes. Page 95 again. Were there any? Didn't even note. These don't have an action items list, is that right, Shauna?
Correct, everything was struck.
There was, and nothing has come. So not only is there anything carried over from before, there's nothing new.
Should we high five all around?
Yeah, let's congratulate ourselves.
Great.
You can actually eat them.
I have
I took it your hopes up.
a business arising. With regards to the update on the infrastructure master plan, I think I recall at that last meeting, Nikki said she'll come back to us after she's read the report and give us a further update. So
In
we'll-
this
we'll-
meeting, it should have been in this meeting, right?
I would have hoped so, because she couldn't give it at the last meeting because she said she didn't have time.
She'd only received it on the Friday and didn't read it until the Monday, yeah.
Is it too much further ahead at this point, though?
What does that mean?
We still don't have the final report. So,
We still
we
have.
have the primary recommendations coming out in terms of projects for spending, which were discussed last night, but that would be
So
a
when would,
different summary perhaps by Fred later in the meeting.
She's on the way.
Yeah, I mean, I could well, Fred, you're the chair of the IC. Give us a sense around the table of what the discussion was around what we did see last night and what's missing.
Yeah, the part that we did see are, as Peter says, the recommendations, the preliminary recommendations. But the whole IMP was not presented as expected according to the RFP. And until it's presented, formatted properly, there's not much point in really going over it because we'd be looking at a flawed document. So as Peter and Nikki are trying to get the thing to a state where we can actually use it, we're just going to have to wait until they hammer it out with DACOM.
Or not, as the case may be. At a certain point, council is going to have to either be told or decide that it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. It's now, well overdue. It's past the third late delivery date. What we did see gave me cause for. I had some comfort that some of the projects that were being looked at were good, but I got no sense that they were part of a master plan. Nor did I get a sense that there was a high level of analysis. So, for example, we currently run 9 water tanks through our network. That's because our water network is built in phases. Are they all still valid, or should they all be replaced with one big tank at the top? And at that, a steel tank that is seismically whatever, because as you will recall, for the last 15 years, our tanks have all been seismically threatened, including
This would be on the non-ocean side via road side?
Well, so the one that is at the top of Ocean View at the Harley plant has been seismically threatened for some time. There's been some remediation work done and some proposed, but that's the whole point of a master plan.
So we're prioritized.
That sounds to me like a perfect location for a big, huge steel tank right above your house.
Well,
I think
we should expropriate. There you go.
I think at this point in time, it's important for council to know that staff is working hard with AECOM, pressing hard. We've let them know we're not happy. Nikki's been doing an awesome job of identifying the gaps where they exist and getting them to correct them. So I think we should reserve judgment until such time as we receive the document and then compare it to what was the RFP. What were they required to do? Did they fulfill the contract? And judge their performance at that point in time. I think we shouldn't preconceive too much other than the fact that we're not happy because it's so late, and that's not a good thing, and it's caused lots of issues. But I think we need to keep an open mind, and when the time comes, compare it to what they were required to deliver as opposed to what we might want at this point in time, which may or may not be the same thing. I don't know. I wasn't there, so.
I certainly hope it is.
Ron and my mirth has got nothing to do with trying not to detract from that, but we understand the urgency of it. We understand staff is working hard. We just, it's just one of those things.
I concur, Peter. This isn't my level of expertise, and it's a huge document, and I couldn't start digging on a flawed document, and it has to go through staff and Nikki and the infrastructure committee to come back somewhat organized for me to get any value out of it, out of interesting reading.
Is there anything you'd like to add, Nick? In terms of your work on bird dogging these guys to deliver what we would expect from the largest engineering firm in the world?
No, we can all move forward. So we have itemized all of the things that we're concerned about and given it back to AECOM, and AECOM are working on everything that we've itemized, and all we can do is keep on them and make sure that we get something that befits the money that we will spend and what the village requires.
If I could, have they given an estimate of how long they figure it will be?
No. So I have just received word that they have got the new modeling information because their subcontractor had to remodel the water portion of it because we had noticed some of the things were wrong with the model itself, which of course recommendations come out of. So they had just received it, they had not had time to vet it, they were just giving us a heads up that they received the information from their subcontractor. And that was today, probably about an hour and a half ago.
So without delving into the details, when you say something wrong with the model, is that they plugged the wrong parameters into a model that had been built correctly, or the actual network that they modeled was incorrect?
There were some errors within what the report was stating, which of course would affect the model that was run. Those were picked up, and we had a meeting and outlined.
Not that it's our job to pick up these kinds of errors.
Correct, but we did, and.
I mean, there's going to be errors that we're not going to pick up because we're not going to go check their spreadsheets and their formulas. So I remain quite concerned, to answer your question, Helen. How engineering firms work is that the report gets checked all the way up the chain and all the way down again, and triple checked against a very stringent checklist to make absolutely sure that what goes out under the brand of, in this case, the preeminent engineering firm in the world, and I mean that, they are the biggest through acquisition. We ought not to be having this conversation. So something has fallen down horribly at AECOM. So I remain concerned, and at some point we're going to need to see a recommendation whether to accept and pay. Paying is the least of my concerns today. We need to be able to rely on the information or draw a line and start again. I also point out that we're beyond the funding window for this year completely, grant funding or loan. So, we've lost a year. And I did want to just point that out because Pam mentioned it last time. Even though there are 2 loan funding windows a year, correct me if I'm wrong, we have to do it as part of our budget anyway. So the next time we're having this conversation is next year.
Or we could do it as a budget amendment.
Okay, so we could
Yeah.
amend the budget in whenever it is, September. Okay.
To amend the 5-year plan to show that we've incorporated and showing how we're funding it.
Okay, that's encouraging.
This is the paperwork.
That's better news than I. Okay, so we do have that option available to us. Okay, so in theory, assuming something good comes out of it, we've lost 6 months, which is not the end of the world. It's slightly better than a year anyway.
Well, really to say, the comfort I get in our situation, although it's not what we intended, that the author of the RFP is the one that caught the problem, so our end is strong. AECOM has a weekend on this, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm just worried, Nikki's doing what is not her job. Her job is supposed to be reacting to the high and mighty engineers, gold-plated advice. Master plan thinking, strategic ideas on things that we've never would have considered in a million years. So that's my level of concern. I mean, if Nikki's finding obvious flaws, what else is wrong? Have they misconstrued the laws of physics? I don't know. So it remains a concern, but as far as the delivery of the report is concerned, I'm confident that we're doing that as best as we can. But as I said, I gave you the example of the tanks. I would hope that the level that they'd be looking at is, do we still need 9 water tanks? All of them very small, all needing huge amounts of maintenance. Look what just happened to this one down here. Still not done. I'm pointing at the highway tank for the table. Okay. That good enough for now? You don't look very pleased.
No, all I wanted to know was what was the status of the IMP. So, from what I gather, staff is working with AECOM to deliver it, and that we were giving preliminary recommendations. And will that be coming forward, or is that?
I think that's coming to the.
For clarification, the preliminary recommendations are incorporated into the budget requests that I've put forward. So the budget requests that are put forward in my supplementals, they'll clearly state on them whether or not it was through the IMP, and they're actually noted. So those came directly out of the IMP. So there's 2 things. One is we did get a draft copy of the IMP, but we gave it back to AECOM because it wasn't what we were expecting. They've come back with an improved draft, which we went through and noted some concerns, gave it back to them. So now we're working on the 3rd iteration. Having said that, the projects themselves for 2016 that you're deliberating on today and moving forward for 2016, those really haven't changed. They're still in there, they're still...
So they haven't changed since the first draft?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say they would be standalone projects that are not on any critical path, meaning they don't have precedence and they don't have dependence. It's things like fixing a broken rail on a bridge, or fixing a stretch of culvert, or whatever. So they are not actually master plan items, although I will point out that if we knew that we had 400 meters of road to fix and got a loan for it and would stage equipment and have a massive $1 million project, that's a lot cheaper than four $400,000 projects. So we don't have this economy of scale. That's the whole point of the master plan yet. But is it fair to say that these are standalone projects, would be standalone anyway?
Well, for clarification, two of them have, where it would have budget implications for 2016 and 2017, so it would have a dependent project, they're noted in mine as well. They'll have it right on the bottom, so 2016, this is how much it would cost, 2017, this is how much it would cost. So if they do have an antecedent, it's noted in the business case itself.
You know, I'll remind us all that, you know, just as last night we got the reminder that we needed to respond to the federal infrastructure minister's request for you know, projects. Who knows what the real implication is there? But talking to them this morning, it seems that, you know, they're desperately looking for a home for $20 billion of community funds. You know, so the fund that they made available is they want to spend it all in 2 years, $60 billion, 24 airports and harbours, 24 sort of provincial stuff, 24 communities. Well, we fit into that last category. This year they're looking for anything, looks like. Next year it's going to be green infrastructure and something, can't remember, sustainable energy or something, can't remember. But this year they want to place a lot of money because they know that there's going to be another election in May and they want to remain the government. Let's move on. So Pam, the recommendation is that Council review the attached summary of 2016 municipal grant applications, bring forward the recommendations for approval to the March 1st meeting. Why not the meeting tonight?
It could be tonight. I just didn't want to put a date on that. You know, there were a lot of questions that you needed answers to.
I think I wouldn't mind an extra review period. Is it critical? Time critical, I mean, in terms of their cash flow.
They don't get funded till June.
Anyway.
And in terms of the budget, as you can see on the second page, I've shown what the request total and then what's currently budgeted.
Yeah.
So,
just remind us of the page number there.
Oh, sorry. The
100?
report is on 99. And on the back of the page is a summary of the grants that have been requested. And I've shown what I've currently got in the budget. I essentially kept the budget the same as the request for last year. For the ones that were the consistent grants, we had some one-time grants that I didn't rebudget. So
I did note there that there's a lot of garden things. I mean, are the efficiencies beginning by combining all of them, or are these really just groups of friends, community-based initiative that we don't mind funding 3 separate garden things?
So 3.
There's the native plants, there's the volunteer gardeners, and the Calvin Grove volunteer gardeners.
No, there's just, in terms of asking, yes, there is, sorry, I was looking at the 2015.
Oh, in fact, the last 3, in fact, didn't ask. They don't have a 2016 grant.
No,
Okay.
only people over $1,000 I requested coming.
No, but I mean, these guys are also
yes.
below. I'm looking at the table. So, but they don't have a 2016 request, the last 3 people.
No.
No.
Yeah, okay, so forget the garden question. The BESMART, the reason it's now in a community grant was because of the agreement reached with the BESMART people, rather than the fact that it's actually a quasi-municipal endeavour.
Yes, I showed it here just to show the consistency, but really it should be removed from here because now we're putting $400 towards the Bear Smart program. It's not technically a municipal grant anymore.
Community grant.
Sorry, no, it hasn't actually. It's not.
No, you're right.
Sorry, it's municipal until a resolution.
The one thing that I did give me cause for pause was the Arts Council, $7,800. That's what I wanted to have a chat about, and lo and behold.
And I think with regards to the Arts Council, I've discussed with Luta if there was a possibility that they can apply for a gaming grant, and they say they've discussed that, and I don't know what the outcome is, but because they fall within the parameters of being eligible, so.
If we're making, if we are going to make the decision March 1st, we could have Rita come at the beginning of that CSC to ask any questions, if that would help.
We put these people through more of a ringer than we do for $150,000 spend in somewhere else. So yeah, certainly these people took the trouble
Yep.
and put together
Yeah,
some.
she just wasn't able to make it, so
Yeah, that's
it
fair
wasn't
enough.
an unwillingness, so I could ask her to come to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for people with jobs
Mhm.
that aren't around here to come in the middle of the day. Okay.
Can I ask a question? More for the town to know what's appropriate or not. I'm looking at the preschool organization. They want a grant of $65.38, but then in their operating budget, they've got gifts and miscellaneous for $12.50 and reserve fund for $65.18. So, in a sense, the amount of the grant they're asking for us is to be given away by them and to be put into a reserve. I mean, is that a fair way of looking at it, or? I was just puzzled when I saw that.
What page is that? That's, is it
It's on
19?
20 of
Oh,
134.
20.
I think I saw something in the materials about a reserve being set up, but it was restricted. And it was provided by parents with respect to expanding the program, perhaps. I forget what, I saw something about that, but see if I can find it again.
Well, I happen to know about this because I used to be the treasurer of the play school. That was a gaming grant that was specially earmarked from a long time ago, and I see that in 2013, long after I left, they voted to restrict it for CapEx. For whatever that's worth, certainly we wouldn't be funding that reserve.
Oh, but it looks like this is the 2015-2016 operating budget.
Is that on page 19?
No, it's on
saying is it-
20, under expenses.
I think what Mayor Burr had said, if it's the same grant, it's restricted to capital, so they actually, and they're requesting operational funds.
Operating
So
funding.
they actually couldn't use that 6,500 because it was probably restricted.
Although they do have a 6,500 reserve fund number as well.
Well, sorry, I was looking at that reserve number. I thought that's what you were talking about,
Yeah.
the 6518.
Oh, no, they have
No, I'm talking about the
down below
10,000.
that, 10,000.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking, forget it. I
Internally
thought-
restricted, that's what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably say that if we were to do it, we'd be contributing to each of these proportionally, and so we would be contributing to somewhat to the reserves. I mean, you can't say that it's that we're contributing to.
Right. So if we gave the in-kind and rental relaxation or something, then they do it.
A non-cash thing, yeah. So, how much? She said that they pay us $13,000 a year.
She said 32.
35.
She said she misspoke, and I made eye contact with her. I think she was just nervous. It's 3,200. And I
Okay.
think she just.
Because I thought, boys, there's some in-kind funding available there.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't. She was very nervous, and she was doing a good job, and that's the last thing you want is
Yeah.
someone to.
And do we waive that?
No.
They pay that in cash.
Yes.
Well, they just started
They
in
just
September,
started.
so they've only had one term.
Yeah.
So for the year, how much would it be?
It depends, because initially when they set it up, they said they were going to rent 2 of the rooms for 5 days, but in fact that's now changed and they only have 1 room
For 4 days.
4 days, because I'm not sure what their numbers are, and they didn't actually answer that. To our knowledge, they only had 3 people in the before school care at the last time we checked.
Mhm.
So I don't know how
So,
many people actually go to
I
it.
think 3,200 is about right. It does, because I did some quick numbers, because I actually haven't put that money in the budget yet, that extra revenue, because I anticipated there might be some sort of,
So 3,200 for the
Negotiation.
school year.
for the school year,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I like
can
that.
find the more exact number, but I think that it actually is fairly
It sounds,
accurate.
I mean, yeah, in
It
round
was
numbers, that's
higher when
fine.
it was the 2 rooms, but now they just have the 1 room.
But it's the opposite of incremental spending. It's decremental granting, where we we just don't charge them that. There's no cash out of our pocket, but it's income to them.
Mhm.
So maybe we do talk about that down the road. I mean, I just say that I believe that the Play School Society, I think it's something to be immensely proud of. But it's the oldest play school in BC, and that it's kept going. A small community like this continuing to support play school, where we've gone down to, well, as we're hearing, there's 2 kids in before school. I believe it is vital to the future of Lions Bay that it's a chicken and egg situation, where if we don't have a play school, we're not going to get young families moving here because we don't have a play school. So at some point, we're going to have to decide how to fund this, and this is one way.
These people are also a cadre of our aggressive committees, such as the coming somewhat not in the Arts Council yet, but certainly in the Events Committee and plus their own stuff. So I think they really are the next generation for our village. And if you think about all parent time doing cleaning up in Canada Day and stuff like that, it's,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it certainly was central to our decision to move to Lions Bay, and we then went on to Lions Bay School, and now my kids are in high school. But I'm the idiot who became the mayor as a result of being enticed to join Lions Bay School back about 100 years ago.
Mayor's Training School.
I need the 2 minutes for talking on this.
Is it, okay, go.
No, on my topic,
Oh, okay.
because we're gonna park this stuff.
Well,
And
can I just make one comment before we leave it, though? Is I really want to support the Play School group and everything, but their financial reporting just confuses me. They're the only one that confuses me, and I don't know really what it is. Like, that's why this question came up. And I wonder if maybe
why don't you
staff could
send,
have a talk
why
with
don't you send Pam an email, and, because they're
Well-
gonna give us back what the rubber
Yeah, it's already-
hits the road, so we'll have a better clip on it.
Sure.
Is there anything specific though, like just overall, or do we want more clarification on the reserve?
Well, no, it's
Or just-
the general thing from each time we've met with them. I go over the numbers and I think, my head spins. I think, this should be easy. These aren't big numbers, but I don't know. If you can look at it.
To be fair, they are a slightly more complex organization, because they have there's a payroll of 77,000, I mean, it's the preschool, the before school, and the after school. So just by that nature, I mean, I do find it confusing too, but by that nature, it is more complex though, rather than just, getting $3,000 and these are the 5 events we're gonna do this year. They have salaries here as opposed to, the other groups don't. The
Yeah,
other groups
it-
just ask for money to cover their events, whereas they're asking for.
I tend to agree with Fred. I think it's just sort of lack of they're not professional accountants. On page 20, this account statements, is that a balance sheet? Operating account, gaming account, restricted fund account? The 22,000, they call that ongoing, yeah, that must be a checking account.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
that's their bank.
That's meaningless without the rest of the balance
Sort
sheet.
of a portion of the balance sheet.
Okay, so there's a recommendation. Can I have a motion on that? What? Sorry.
Sorry, you just have a quick comment on that.
Yeah, it looks to me, and I totally agree with Fred, it looks like they're actually having an expense of $6,500 as a reserve to put it into reserve,
Yeah.
which is basically what they're asking us for. So our question should be what that line actually is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've made a note of that already,
It's
to ask about the
within
reserve.
$20
Yeah.
of that reserve fund.
You're welcome, I was confused with that.
Must they have a reserve? Maybe that's,
No, it's all-
no? There's no legislative requirement?
No, the reason they have a reserve is if you look over they lost 6,500 the year before. Oh no, so that's this current year budget. They project to lose 6,500 this year.
But they wouldn't if they took out the
Yeah.
expenditure of a reserve fund. which
But the
is-
reserve isn't in this one. What is the difference
It's in
between?
both.
It's in both.
Oh, is it?
Actually, I think-
18.
Basically, on the second page, it's just a repeat of the expenses of the
Yeah.
114,317.
Oh, you're
So
right.
they're expensing a
Yeah.
reserve fund, and that's
Which looks like-
within
Like it's like a
$20 of what
contribution.
they're asking
Yeah.
for.
Yep. I did wonder at this sort of slightly strange number. They're just funding their loss.
Well, not a loss,
But
the
it's not a
reserve.
loss.
It's
They're
not a
trying
loss,
to
it's
It's
transfer.
creating the loss that
Funding
they're
the
now
artificial
asking us
loss.
to.
Yeah, I don't know,
cover.
but how would you come up with such a strange number for your reserve? Is it 10% of something?
Yeah, I'll definitely ask that.
It's worth
question.
asking. Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Haley, good.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, so there's that recommendation. Would you like me to say it again? It's the recommendation that we review and bring forward for approval at the March 1st meeting. Can I have a motion and a second on that? Thanks. All in favour? Opposed? Carried. The next one is the supplemental budget request on page
That
101.
would be in there first.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry,
beg your pardon,
just,
6B.
On the financial
Before
commentary,
we
thank you.
apologize, just before we start, did you want me to request the Arts Council come and do a presentation at the March 1st meeting, or?
Yes,
Okay. Because they
And
did
they-
offer.
they can do it at the evening
AM or
meeting.
PM.
Yeah,
PM or PM.
the evening meeting. I'm hoping we can get away with no council strategy meeting on that day.
Oh, it's a huge one. We'll definitely have one that day. That's the fourth quarter review, it's the reserves, it's the budget.
Yeah, okay.
You
never
can't
mind.
get away with them until the budget's done, sorry.
Okay, that's true.
In
yeah.
fact, I might even recommend more.
Yeah.
So I think that would
Strategy
be a
meetings.
nice place for them to come, because I know you can make 3 o'clock.
Oh.
And that gives you a chance to sort of absorb what she says before you have to make a decision in the evening meeting.
Fine.
Would
Yeah,
that
good
be
point.
okay?
I'm
Yeah.
sure with 2 weeks' notice, I can send one of their key representatives.
She's already said she can come
Okay,
to that
fine,
meeting.
good.
She's out of town, that's why she didn't
Okay.
want to send anyone else,
Okay.
so.
Thank you. I'll be quick, and if I'm too long, I will forgive my item later on Lions Bay beach piece. Financial information. pending on March the 1st will be the January 31st fiscal year and draft in-house revenue and expenses and CapEx done to the end of 2015. There'll be no balance sheet, but there will be an estimated reserves that Pam was going to provide us. The not on the financial calendar is Pam's intention to provide us a cash flow for the March 15th meeting. It's a bit of a magic trick on her part, because without knowing the agreed upon general tax increase and the projected operating expenditure increases and project and cap expenditures to be agreed upon from over the next 3 weeks, it's a little bit of good guessing, let alone whatever the IMP might yield. So the cash flow will be pretty elementary, but will need to be significantly upgraded for the following edition. This will be done after the budget is finalized or semi-finalized. The cash flow will provide meaningful information as ongoing overhead draws, timeliness and costs of major expenditures identified for the balance of the year and into 2017. I asked that for the March 15th edition of the cash flow that Pam provide the math and her recommendation as to a desired continuous net, that is less legal contingency, building permit, stuff that we're holding on behalf of others, working capital levels. I draw that all to your attention because it shovels into reserve balances and what I really want to talk about today, which is that the data I've identified will indicate or not whether our finances are as acute as I personally think they are. The next 2 budget meetings are critical, and decisions made are likely to have consequences for several years out. 2.5%, 5%, 7.5%, and we are modeling at 5% for general tax increases. I believe 5 is inadequate. My reasons are fourfold. Firstly, there's been nothing put to reserves in 2 years, and depending on where we go, it could be a 3rd year. These would be boiled down reserves, not what the balance sheet might show us when the auditors give us, because there the number will be higher because we've taxed for projects that aren't done yet, so the reserves haven't been depleted. So when the time comes, we won't be fooled on that. So I can tell you from memory, when we last did this in early 2015, the best case net reserves were skinny at best. The second reason is that there are many, many operational costs that are expensive and in my view should be done. And just to pick a few, implementation of the parking plan, the OCP, and things of that nature that are pretty big pieces. Thirdly, let's call it capital expenditures or infrastructure under any other word. We don't know exactly what it will be yet, but we don't have a lot of choices. It's coming down the road. And in my view, unwise choices due to a lack of cash just are unacceptable to our community. The fourth reason for argument for increased taxation is leverage. When you're able to get grants at 33 cents on the dollar, to have several $100,000 that you didn't have the year before, it's like finding $1 million. Also, there's the opportunity for borrowing capacity because our revenue will be higher, therefore our window is higher. So I think these are all good reasons. Council decides as a group what the general tax increase will be. On your quickly done piece, because the province was doing their budget and I was doing 2 other things today, I had this hand done, and Pamela has agreed to put this in a format for the following meetings and ensuing ones. Essentially what this does is just nets out the big numbers, because what we're going to look at today are all the different categories of costs. So, but taking the big picture, the scenario here on the left-hand column is which is where we are at a 5% general tax increase. It was $210,000. We've reduced it 54 from these reduced capex from water and sewer. So the 264, as we stand today at 5%, and I'll be clear what that is net cash to fund all. I'll repeat the word all, capital and additional operational costs without reserve transfers. And I've highlighted, I think, that those are skinny. Not to pick any particular number, but I'm fixated on 35. If the number was 35, you can see that it's not 264, it's 560. The bottom half of this is the requests that we're going to be looking at today, which I've just made some arbitrary decisions, primarily to show the bottom 2 underlined categories. Showing a dip into the reserves on the left-hand side and an almost $300,000 surplus for other projects. And, you know, my rationale is pretty small, on the LBFR, the shift payment hasn't been, there's no business case yet. And the 100,000 for general, includes a part-time employee. So there's some play in this, but it could go either way. So the bottom line here is the right-hand corner on a higher tax rate allows considerable opportunity to move into a bigger CapEx situation this year or putting into reserves for following years. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Pam, do you have any sense today what our transfers into or out of reserves will be as a result of 2014? 15, I mean, sorry. Last year.
Yeah, obviously quite a bit less than we had budgeted because of the Build Canada. We had the Build Canada in there, but I will have a very, very accurate number at the next meeting, March 1st.
But we did have the Build Canada in there.
No, there was. So what I'm saying is the actual draw will be less than what we budgeted, but there was because we'll have to rebudget it this year.
Can you make an educated guess?
At this point, yeah, no, not really. Maybe about
750
100,000.
was our best case over a year ago.
You're talking about draw from reserves. How
Well,
much we actually
I
drew
believe
from
that last year's
reserves.
budget showed some going into reserves. Not much, no?
No.
No.
It was just a draw from
We
reserves.
drew from reserves last year.
But then, of course, we've had all these additional things like
Negative things.
the fire
Yeah.
alarm, all
Yeah.
these things,
No.
phone system, on and
That
on
was
and on.
budgeted. Yeah, so I'm sensing in terms of that over the 2 years we'll be flat.
So there's no hope from less than expected expenditure last
No,
year.
but I'm hoping we'll have met budget. Like
No,
when you take into
as
account.
I said, it'll be inflated, Carl, because the projects haven't been done, so the actual number will be higher, but if you take out what is
Yeah,
going.
but that's just a liability. That, in
That's
theory,
right,
won't
flat
affect.
over the 2 years.
Yeah, it won't affect the reserves. The reserves are what we decide they need to be. Well, I mean, I can see the math. You're raising taxes 30% to fund 288 into reserves, and that's not any kind of leveraged money. That's not the change from a 2/3 funded project or an even better funded project, according to the
Well,
feds.
as you know, there's too many moving parts. I don't want to dwell too much more on this, other than if council is fixated on 5%, we actually can cut the meeting fairly short, because there's just not
If there's
enough
nothing
money.
left, yeah.
So I don't believe that this council's up to that kind of thinking. So I prefer to leave the revenue piece of this to the side, but know that it's there. It's the second meeting, and the last one I'm going to mention it.
Comment and question is, this looks really appealing when I look at the bottom right corner, but then I'm also thinking the impact on the homeowners. For example, with an increase that you've suggested, what would the increase to a homeowner of, say, $1 million home?
I did pro forma on mine, and I think it worked out to $600.
An extra 600.
$600.
And say somebody on the waterfront?
Well, I'd say double mine, it'd be $1,200.
Or even triple.
For triple.
Or a triple,
Yeah, so I mean, just let's work this out. A 1% tax increase is $11,000 overall. Divide by 550. Let's just make it 10,000 divided by 500. That's $20 per house.
But that's
So-
not how the mill rate works.
No, on average. On average. So 30% is 20 times 30, which is 600. Yeah.
Funny how that works.
Hmm.
There you go.
So the average house in Lions Bay, which is a house worth $205 million, would see a $600 increase.
Which just happens to be what my assessment is.
So, $600, it's not the end of the world.
Well,
But it's a very, very big number. When I talk to the other mayors, Burnaby, for example, he's walking terrified and has literally a bodyguard because they're proposing a 3% tax increase.
Yeah, well, I guess the way I'm looking at it is two different people groups. For the average wage earner and stuff like that, with the way inflation works, their ability to increase their income or just take on another contract, they might be able to take it in stride. But for those that are on pensions who don't have any control over their income, that's a real...
It's a big hit. And I'll also just remind us all that we changed the way we do water this year, so a part of the water is no longer tax deferrable.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also thinking of the folks along Lions Bay Avenue. Every time we do a tax increase, they got nailed more than anybody. you know, and they should be able to afford it, I guess, is the easy thing, but there are some seniors down there. So I'm sort of sensitive towards that.
Well, I mean, you know, I think at this stage, Ron's just sort of, it's a sobering number that the range is going to be somewhere between, well, I very much doubt that we're going to reduce taxes, but somewhere between 0 and 35 is the number. It depends how much we wish to put in reserves. I'm reluctant to put money in reserves when it's just pure tax dollars. It's not money that we save 2/3 of by raising funding or.
I mean, even if it was, for the sake of argument, if it was, and I'll put $5 on the table now, if it was $75 we put to reserve, we put 210 to infrastructure. I mean, it'd be the first time we put anything in reserves in 3 years, and we're doing the right thing pending a better thing.
And I'll also just point out, recording notwithstanding, that the only time we actually added to reserves before was through an error.
Correct. I think that, if I can close off on this one,
I'll talk to
everybody
you
is
later.
elected to do the best thing for the village, and there's a time when it's painful.
Okay, well, let's cross that bridge as we get to it, which I believe is next. Thanks, Ron. Just give me an estimate, Peter. How much time do we have left here?
25 minutes?
No, that I can tell. I mean, in the agenda.
25 minutes.
It's going to have, because I have to leave at 5. I have to go and pick up my
Everybody
kid.
has to leave at 5.
Oh, do we?
And
Okay.
Let's see if we
And I'll
can do
waive
it.
on my last.
You think we can do it?
Yeah, because as I'm prefacing, it's perfect timing, segueing nicely into my supplementals.
Okay.
We have rehashed this a lot, and given, you know, we're hopefully we have information coming from the infrastructure committee, and the strategic planning you're doing, we'll have no more council priorities. I see the next session on March 1st, where we really drill through the supplementals and talk about tax rates, see how much we have in reserves, and then start making the hard decisions. So if we just went through the supplementals again to see if there's anything that jumps out that people could do without, that we could fine tune it more, but rather than going line by line, and I sort of envision that at the next meeting when we have a lot more additional information
I'd be
to
happy to
help
lead
guide
this
council.
through.
That's fine. Can I just ask a quick question? What is different that we see here today to what we saw last time?
Yeah, sorry, I thought after I probably should have flagged the changes. I just, a few additional things were put below the line that council had said that they could do without. So it was just a little bit of tweaking that way.
Okay, shall we just go through them? Ron, you drive.
Thank you. If we can refer to page, and Pam, touch my arm if I'm going too fast. I was at coffee late this afternoon. 102. So middle column amount, fire department. I think the 31,000, it's hard to fight for equipment, so let's, without first blush, that one's fine. The second part, major piece to me is the business case requested for the shift of payments. I'm not pro, I'm not against, I don't see enough information, I understand what the want is. And there might be some general tweaking there. So to me, if there's not a better representation, I need to be convinced. So the number is not 77 as per the model I gave you, is 53.
Okay, anybody else?
Pam, with regards to that number, I think you mentioned last time that you're going to bring forward some benchmarking with regards to shift payment.
Yes, and we'll do that. I'm still tweaking the business case with the fire chief,
Okay.
and then that will come forward at the same time. I thought, to be fair, you should see both at the same time, the business case as well as we had done a survey of other municipalities, and we'll have a summary of how they pay.
And that's March 1st?
March 1st, yes.
So those are the big 1, 2. So we'll go all off landscape fire and rescue to the next one, which is page 103. General government. The three big pieces here are the 20 for the fire services strategic review, the 45 for the office assistant, and the office staff job reevaluation, CRE audits. I don't have a case for the 20,000, the bottom 20, but I'm going to presume from what we've heard that there's something going on and that's going to come forward. So I have no reason to just...
Yeah, that's not so much a business case as a heads up that actually, we have to do that.
There's not going to be a choice on that one.
That's the cost of the CRA audit.
So if that's fine,
And
then
that's our
that takes
estimate.
care of that. I think the, for the 45,000,
Yes.
I haven't heard any pleading or anything like that, so don't know, but I'm presuming that's going to come forward in some form.
So
And
what
I
does that
say that
mean?
because it's easy to just say no.
What does that mean, come forward?
We'll bring up a business case
Or
forward
a
with that
business
at the next
case, what does
meeting
it
as
mean?
well.
Is it partly your community coordinator, is it the seniors thing? I don't know. The number's fine, so in my piece that I gave you on the handwritten, I kept it in. I also kept the fire services review in. I will say in disclosure, Carl, and I did talk about this, and I'd like to come back to this one again. I think going forward, the fire department needs to be explored, and this may be the vehicle, don't know. So I'm not in a position to take that one away either, so I've left it at 100.
At 20. Oh, 100 total. Yeah.
100 all in.
Yeah, I mean, I flagged that $20,000 number for the fire services review, and I crossed it out and wrote down 10, but then I realized that's what it costs. We have to have one because we're approaching a strategic sea change in the fire department. And if what it takes is that, then we're going to need to do it. Although Fred will tell us that we've had several reports in the recent past, Pamplin and others, that are a good way towards that. So what we're really looking for is an update to an existing report. And is it 20 grand?
Well, I guess on that one, Carl, you know what, haven't seen it, don't know what it looks like, but I know that we have a CAO in place now, and he may want to have a look at it and see whether there's a hybrid we do, or we do it in-house, or we go outsource, and whether that number is the right one.
What's your sense there, Peter?
So, just to remind you, that number started off at 30.
Yeah.
We knocked it down to 20 last time on the basis that we would try to
That is the in-house number.
focus it. Well, it's not necessarily the in-house number, but I will also say that you know, I have been reviewing fire services information in previous reports. I had a good long 2-hour meeting or longer with Andrew the other day. So I want to continue to work with him. We're going back and forth, question and answer, a lot of different things. So we talked about level of service that will have to be declared. We talked about different options and what they mean, and so there's further work that he and I are doing, and I'm going to continue to do that. At some point, I'll arrive at a conclusion as to what we need in order to go forward, and I'll bring forward a recommendation, and hopefully with a finer, sharper pen on the number. So that's where I'm trying to go with it.
Well, and even for me, I think something needs to be done, so if the 20 is actually 10 and it takes us 6 weeks to get there, fine, that's the number for now, and we'll adjust it afterwards, and that's just the way it is. Just gotta move on here. So the 100 is per the piece that I've given you. There's some more questions. I've put over 104. And how can I fight with council's requests, really?
Wait, Ron, before you move forward, with staying on this page, I have a question. The approving officers core CEO $3,000. What was that for? I don't really recall.
Well, my first comment would be I wouldn't normally expect to see something like this in a supplementary budget. I think the reason it was brought forward was because it's a higher than usual number for an educational course. However, it's one that I need and that you guys need me to take to properly do the approving officer position here. The alternative is you contract it out, and that's going to cost way more than $3,000. So it's in the fall, and so
This is the Justice Institute thing, or something like that, or the provincial
no,
government?
it's put on through the Municipal Association Training Institute, MADI for short.
So you get your ticket out of this, basically.
I don't think there's any ticket per se, but there's a lot of material, and it's a week-long course that you go away and you spend there, and yeah, you get inundated and you learn it all. So it's very important for the village.
Should this not just be in the operational budget?
Well, that's why it's as a supplemental. It couldn't be absorbed in our operational budget.
Yeah.
Like we have a set amount for courses per person, so whenever there's a request about that, we put it on a supplemental request.
Do we have an approving officer today?
Well, yeah, you appointed me already. So
Well, what more do you need?
more than just title.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to step in it, so to speak.
What is it, an approving officer? You approve the...
Approving officers required for subdivision approvals and, you know, all those things that
Okay.
we got people beating down our doors for that are going to require action.
Okay. And under request removed after review, I think, Pam, we seem to be missing the asset appraisal, 17,000. That's removed, but then it's not identified below.
Oh, I apologize, it might have got cut out when I printed
What
it.
was that,
Thanks
Helen?
for catching that.
Helen, my hearing's not so good. What was that?
Originally we had 17,000 for asset management or something.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we said no to it, and
Yeah,
so,
no, thank you for catching that. I think when I printed it, I added to the
Looks
bottom
like
and I
it,
think
yeah.
it got cut off. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I will adjust that.
You got a piece of paper floating around there with the 17,000.
I know, it's there.
no, it's just good for records, so
Yes.
maybe next year
No.
when we have money,
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
go back in.
I'm trying to get this out of here by 5.
Well, that is a good point, because the reasons I haven't removed these
Yeah,
is when we
because we
do our
mentioned that
five-year
last time.
plan, I want to maybe slot them into the five-year plan.
No, we've got to keep this format
So,
going. It's great.
exactly.
This really helps to remember.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Helen, for picking out. So flip page 104. Again, it's very hard for a singular person to fight with his council colleagues, but really the big items here are the 65 for the OCP, which is big OCP, the signage, parking committee thing. And I mean, I'll notionally say 20 grand potentially for Central Beach, but again, it's in my stuff later, but that's a call. So I've just retained the number per the number that I've given everybody that's handwritten. I've rounded it to 119.
Well, don't forget, Ron, first of all, the 17.5 is wrong. It's supposed to be 40,000.
Yeah, I
Okay.
said final number to come. I had written down 40,000, but I wasn't sure if that was firm, so that's why I flagged
Let's
it
put
that the
40 in.
final.
I'd rather be way out than
That the final
way
number.
under.
Yeah, I'm not promising anything out of the parking plan in terms of revenue, but there will be some revenue to offset that
Yeah.
40,000.
Yeah,
I don't know what the
because we
revenue will
didn't
be.
have the number, I just wanted to flag it that this
Yeah.
is just really a placeholder that I.
But here's the
that
one
was
that's going to be a
still-
hard one for me to say, Ron, is the 20,000 on the beach washroom.
I'm not stuck on it.
I would suggest that if we're going to do that, we need to wait until we have parks funds from the disposition of parks lands, in which case we'll have a lot of money to play with that we're looking for a home for. That
what-
won't happen for a year or more. But can we put 20,000 worth of paint into the beach right now?
Well, I can tell you, we don't need to put 20 grand worth of paint in there, because I think that my sense is for a 4-digit number, we could paint and pretty the place up so that it'd be acceptable. I think the piece would be the operational cleanup, which we can't really get away from.
No, that we definitely need to do. That's not CapEx though.
No.
But this is not only CapEx, this is
Yeah,
just
so
expenditure.
So if you want to park this one for now, because I've covered it in my one-pager,
Yeah, okay.
but that's fine. So to my colleagues, I'm holding the 119, but we're all going to have to look in the mirror when the thing comes.
Can I just ask one more thing? The 15,000 potential legal fees that we took out, how did that come out? Why did we take that out?
We felt that the budget we had now was sufficient, because we've been sufficiently under
Okay.
budget
Okay.
year over year with the actual.
I don't think I should have put it in there anyhow.
And-
I should have.
Back in when you actually inserted it in the
We're
first
not-
place.
We can't talk anymore.
Sorry, Pam, so for also, I think the community coordinator has fallen off as well. We had taken
Okay.
it out and it's not.
Okay, thanks. I should have checked this
Thank
better.
you,
Thank
Helen.
you for catching this, Helen.
And I think last time we discussed something, the repair for the village hall floor, is that in this budget?
No, I think we just absorb that in our operating. I mean, we don't have to,
okay.
not everything's a supplemental, we do have sufficient room in our operating to cover things like that, so.
And that would conclude my piece on this, because I think beyond, we're getting into the infrastructure public works asks, and that's not, other than the last page, which is page 108, which is been 14 grand has been struck.
Which, the 14?
The camera, we're gonna outsource,
Yeah, that was removed.
That was removed, yeah.
so that goes to outsource.
Okay, it was removed. I thought we discussed and then kept it in. Okay, I didn't realize.
Because I remember we said that we're going to have to use a contractor one more year.
Sorry, but then I thought we had said that the camera pretty much pays for itself in a year, so then we
That's right,
decided to
you're
keep
right.
it in.
That is what the discussion was.
Yeah, so no, it's still
that
in there.
okay?
And I have, and it is included in the sewer budget that we prepared.
Well, I saw it in the sewer, which is why I had the number, but then, you
No,
talked
Pam's
me-
absolutely
You talked
right.
me out of it this morning.
Yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah, so I think it's still there. The 35, I
One
think,
session is 14 grand, right?
Yeah.
It paid for itself in a year.
One session, but we felt that it would pay for itself
No.
very quickly, because we use it more than once a year.
So it was envisioned that the purchase of the camera would offset having to get a contractor in to do a similar task.
Well, I'd
And
hope so.
Yeah, and so we had already known that for this year, we would be spending at a minimum of 7,500 to 10,000.
It's all coming back to me now.
for that, so.
Okay,
Okay.
let's leave it in.
I believe that the ROI was a
Okay.
year and a half.
So
Yeah.
when Pam does my number, it'll be out 14 grand to the plus on both sides. To the negative on both sides. So the balance of this, which is the 1, 2, 3 pages, is Nikki's and Pam's bailiwick, not mine.
Okay, well, I'll take that. So the one thing I heard about this, the infrastructure, the public works part, Nick, the service level increases or decreases that I asked for some time ago. Have they passed their way through?
No, I believe that was going to be a conversation between yourself and Peter. I had responded back to your emails indicating that there was going to be a conversation that...
I don't recall that at all. When was that?
It was in response to your email.
Oh, so it must have been a month ago. So.
You asked me about it.
Okay, I mean, they're not going to be big, and I guess they would be supplemental. Though, in fact, in one or two cases, it was a reduction in spend. Okay, I'll redig those out. I would like to see them appear at some point. It's just a change of service level.
Correct.
But you plug it into your model, and it spits out a new number, right?
So, how do you anticipate that conversation taking place on a regular basis? Because Councillor Watterson also has brought up, something about policy with respect to service levels. So, as a council, how do you want to approach changing service levels? They're not something that should be changed willy-nilly. You shouldn't just plug in a new number here and there and change it all the time. You set your service level. You do so in conjunction with the advice of your staff, who inform you as to certain things that they have to do, certain things that they have always done, and then there's a bunch of other stuff that is nice to haves that everybody, and then you try and hit as many of them as you can, and you hit all the ones that you have to do, of course. So my understanding as to over the last few years here is that there are service levels for, in particular, public works that have a number of those things, components to them. Some years things are hit, some years they aren't. You have landslides and emergencies and all kinds of things that affect those service levels and the ability to deliver them. But there's also the concern that if you just sort of set all these service levels or increase them in a void without having a discussion with what that really means in terms of the resources required to achieve those service levels or the changes that you're asking for, then you kind of need to be cognizant of how many people it takes to deliver
That's
that
what we're
service
asking
level.
for. We want to know what it costs. So it's a budget discussion. And so the question was, what would this cost to do this? And then council, I presume, would opine on whether we want that on. I don't even recall what they are. I think one was changing the aeration of the field from once to twice a year, although we didn't do it once this year. In fact, the community paid for it. They raised donation funds. So we're one short. And I can't remember what the other ones were. I believe one was increased garbage collection at the beach, which presumably would be done by a contractor anyway, so it would have a direct cost. So I've sent them in several times. I guess I can send them in again. And what I'm looking for is them to be plugged into the model to understand what the extra cost is, to decide whether we
I
want
think
it.
those are captured in the document that we'll be discussing later on, the IRR. So I think that's where they ended up.
No, it was specific ask to plug
Yeah,
into
they're
the model.
They're there. But we can talk about that
Unless
as
it's
an
a new
example
IRR.
of a way to
I
deal
think
with.
Carl's were fairly specific to a couple of things. I think Helen's, which I think is you're kind of shooting a flare in the air a little early on this one because that's tonight's piece on.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to sort of, since we're talking about service levels, just talk about some thoughts about it.
You don't have it there?
I do. Here's your email from. It's just a two. One's the.
Thanks.
Sorry. Power just the second page. That's your most recent one.
Yeah, it doesn't list what they were. It just says that I'd asked for them. This was dated some time ago. And then there was also Ron's request for increased garbage collections.
So I think we'll get all this tabbed up here.
I can look them up.
Okay.
I think there were 5, if I remember correctly. Okay, so let's move through this one quickly. Bridges. There's 3 items for bridges. I would suggest the $5,000 feasibility study, given what we now know about the nature of the bridge access to the property in question, the parcel, the residential parcel. I don't think there's any benefit to spending $5,000 on an access study. Nick?
You know, I think if the three IC members, and how lucky we are that they're here, I mean, if they make a note or something, I mean.
What do you say, Fred?
You guys are close to it, I'm not.
Well, one of the problems in talking to the homeowner of that place, he really doesn't want a different access because
Yeah.
you just stand in front of the property and it's straight up like that. I don't see any way that you're gonna give a suitable access without the guy having a winch on the front of his truck, other than if you go traversely across the front of the next property or two and then come across, and then you've got all kinds of issues with two other neighbors needing the driveways fixed.
Yeah, rights of way and easements and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Maybe it's something to be done in the future, but this year for $5,000, I say we scratch it.
Yeah.
Can you move that into maybe next year, Pam?
What's critical about it?
The bridge.
No, I understand that, but so the bridge is deteriorated to the point where it's not usable?
No, essentially what we came out from the infrastructure meeting last night is the bearings, there's 8x8 bearings that hold the beams are wearing out. And there's some woodwork and handrails need doing as well. And some of the folks speaking in the public sector public gallery were suggesting that, you know, all you really need to do is jack the thing up, pull the beams out, put it back down on, and then do some of your top work.
That's right.
So, with the homeowner saying he'd rather keep the bridge and a possibility of a simple fix, the 134.5 to do the complete remediation that was recommended just seems, to my mind, just ludicrous.
Well, I'm not going to argue with the professional engineer's opinion, despite the fact the engineer hasn't actually given us the report yet. But what we're talking about here is the $5,000 alternative access study, and that's.
But as a previous tech too with Ministry of Transportation and Highways, they did a lot of bridge work over the years. Many bridges in the northern part of the province have failed bearings on them, and it's a big problem. And the bridges, that failed bearings will last for years and years and years before they finally give way because they're built that way. So there are fixes available. There are dime store fixes, like you said. Jack it up, put a timber underneath it. It settles it. It fixes it for now. It's not a problem that's gonna be
As I recall from
manifest itself right now.
The preview of the IMP that we got, the issue was that the beam's rusting. And there was some question as to what kind of steel it was, whether it was chrome steel or moly steel, one of which is rust tolerant and one of which is very bad because it starts spalling off in layers and then eventually the whole thing collapses. I think we're not talking about the bridge yet, so the 5,000 out. If we can go then down to the drainage and roads project, we heard last night at the IC that we can get away with the $15,000 study and $7,000 to patch the hole on a temporary basis by filling it in and retiring it, rather than doing the full whack. What I'd suggest we do is that saves it saves 15,000 minus 7 plus 7 of the 138.
For clarification, there is a report for a direction request report.
So maybe this is,
what you're talking
but
about.
I suggest that number is not 138. I've crossed it out. Is that what it says? Can't really see.
139.
139. Thank you.
It goes back to 15.
No, 15 plus 7. 7 for the patch and 15 for the study. Why do we want the 15 still? Because that's a shovel-ready plan. We've got to get shovel-ready plans in play because the money is coming, if not this year, next. So you get that, Pam? 23.
It'll fall out of the
recommendation.
request,
Yeah.
so.
But I think you can pretty much take that as a fairly obvious choice. And then that was it. And the 14,000 pipe camera is in.
Well, actually, for the fence replacement, I think, Nikki, you said that we were going to get a breakdown or between the marina fence and the
fence replacement actually came out, as you'll recall, in the previous meeting, so it just should have been another below the line item.
So the 35.
So the fence replacement in between the marina and Lions Bay Beach Park actually came out in the previous meeting, and it got turned back. It turned into just the security fence around the works yard, the fixes there. Everything, it's basically everything to do with chain link.
Yeah.
So is the number still 35,000?
Yes, because it's we will provide better information. It's not very accurate. Well,
So
not so much it's not accurate, it's not very descriptive the way it is right now.
So, sorry, what do we get for 35,000? It's the chain link fence.
That fence replacement, just remove
Okay.
that and we'll
Okay.
bring the other, this is not,
So we should just cross it out?
Cross it out.
Fine,
Okay.
thank
I
you.
will bring back the
Yeah,
chain
fine.
link only portion. This is incorrect.
Carl, could you take us through 106 and 107?
Okay, so I didn't have anything on 106 and 107 to take out. Anybody else? There were some questions about what would we end up with, Nick, on the heroic log archway at the beach entrance. But I think the answer was nothing.
I sleep well at night. I saw a man with a chainsaw. I saw it coming down. I saw 2 planters on the stubs. Nice planters.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, that's fit. I don't think there's going to be stubs, though, because that's the rotten part. Doesn't really matter.
No, I'm sure there's no logs underneath our roads.
The one thing that I would add, and I'm not suggesting we necessarily need to put it in here, I mentioned it to Peter because there's an imminent danger that we had 4 trees about to come down on the Centennial Trail, and we sent a contractor in there to take care of them, which they did. That talks to a bigger problem that we're going to have to address soon, is that when people chop down trees, they throw the trees down into the highway reservation just to add to the fuel load. So now 4 big cedar trees have been cut down and just thrown down there. The problem is there's 2 more. The one has been taken care of by parties unknown. Somebody went in there with a chainsaw the day before yesterday. A big tree had come down on the Centennial Trail, impossible to even an agile dog. It's down on the highway reservation now, got chopped up. There's another one, a Doug fir, that is leaning. It started leaning in the last week, and I know it's started because the bark is spalling off the downhill side, meaning that the bark is under compression, and I sent you a video on it. So now that's a massive undertaking to get that out of there. But we don't have any budget, from what I understand, for dangerous tree removal. It's certainly not this 8,900, right, Nick?
Right, that 8,900 is earmarked
That's-
for specific trees out of a specific report.
I'm also conscious that this particular piece of land, this particular Doug fir, may actually be a Modi tree, but the point is it's going to fall on somebody. So I'll just bring that to mind that this budget's not done yet. So if we can move on to page 107, anybody got anything there? And 108 we know about, so we'll move on. So what's to be done there? Recommendation to take that to council on the 1st of March, Pam, is that correct?
Yes.
Or this meeting?
It was just, again, continued review of supplemental budget requests will be considered for inclusion in the 2016 budget.
Okay, so what's
So
the
just
next
to
go around on
continue.
this?
March 1st,
March
I'll
1st, okay.
make the changes and
Okay, so we don't
print
need to have
all
that
of
in the
them.
resolution, that's fine.
So that'll be there with, also transposed onto the upgraded sheet that I did, so we're gonna get a roving total as we're doing this.
Yeah, and at a certain point, you can actually back calculate the tax increase needed, right? Because we know what our
No,
assessment
exactly,
is.
that'll be all part of the March 1st,
Yeah.
and then we can tie it into an accurate reserve.
The 35% increase will be on last year's general municipal tax only. Because we have 2 kinds, we have the fire levy and we have general municipal, right? Those are our 2 property taxes.
Right, we keep it as a lump sum, and then we just pull out to show them the fire levy. It's really a notional thing, so it'll be on the entire amount.
So, oh really? Okay. So the mill rate, okay. I know the answer already. Okay, thanks. Okay, so we'll move on then. I'll ask for a motion on that recommendation and a second, which essentially means that Pam's taken notes and we'll put it in
Yes.
next time. All in favour?
I'll
Opposed?
print
Okay.
it. I'll put it in, I'll print it next time.
Okay. Okay, the check register on page 109. Pam, is this as a result of my suggestion that I stop signing checks if council can see the check register?
We've always done this.
We're doing it
didn't-
quarterly
we do
last
it
year.
quarterly, we missed the 3rd quarter. So we'll do this anyway, but you had also said this would give you comfort when you gave up signing the checks.
But I'd love council to go through this. The only thing that I'd like to see is, can this not be sorted by payee, not by date? It's somewhat meaningless by date. It's, if we can do it as just import it into Excel and sort it by payee, subtotal by payee.
Yep, we can do that.
Because then you really get a sense of, the
The
biggies and the
total.
smallies.
Yeah.
And it would be really useful to have the running totals from the previous, nah, maybe not. See what you can think.
Okay.
By payee. Anybody notice anything relevant here? I mean, I happen to have signed every one of these checks, so
Thank you.
I know what they say. See, we paid TransLink $184,000. So the recommendation is that we receive the report. Can I have a motion and a second? All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thanks. Ocean View Road at Panorama, road culvert and road remediation. The recommendation is on page 129. I trust we've all read it. I don't propose to debate it much. Unless anybody has something to say, what I just want to know, Nikki, we hear from residents that they have water running through their property. Is this as a result of this culvert, or if it was, has it now been fixed?
So I don't have anything conclusive to report back on whether what the actual result of the water is. That would involve a geotechnical assessment. It would involve a lot more work than I can give you.
I don't even know where the water's coming from. Is it coming from on top of the road, under the road? They just have water running through their property.
It's difficult to tell.
Okay.
And it's very difficult for me to tell. There's no way I can sit here at the table, look you guys in the eye and tell you exactly where that was.
This is all starting to make sense though, because there was always this thing about it's not chlorinated, so it's not village water and all that stuff. Okay, now I get it. So this has been an ongoing issue.
I don't know if it's been an ongoing issue with regard to the exact location.
Got you. Okay.
The village has numerous springs that spring up. It has a lot of groundwater. It has many, many interesting things to do with water that are not from our potable water system.
There's no doubt about that.
That way.
There's plenty of other water available to make a mess. Okay, so...
So with regard to the actual where it plugged and ruptured, that specific location has been patched and fixed. So obviously, and we've talked about this before, and we don't need to bash the horse again, but a larger section will need to be replaced at some point. So basically, the premise of this report is you've already actually given direction with regard to
2 and 3.
Yes, the options to pursue the desired result, which is number 2, instruct staff to utilize the process to secure authorization and funding for engineering design and survey portion only, and bring forward the results of that design and survey for inclusion in the 2017 capital budget process, and instruct staff to utilize operational budget pavement funding to temporarily patch Ocean View Road. And that's with the express understanding that this pavement patching will not fix the underlying cause.
Oh, so you have a budget for that?
I have
30 grand.
I have pavement funding, correct.
Oh, good. Well, then you
Am
can
I-
take the 7,000 out, Pam. You know how I said 23 for that project? It's actually not 23, it's just the 15.
It's a constant operational
Yeah.
expense.
We have,
Like
so
his budget.
we have budget for it, and what it'll mean is that we don't use that budget
Yeah, sure.
to do other
Something
things
else, yeah,
that may
sure.
come up in the year. So the choice is basically, do you fund it from capital or do you fund it from operating?
If we have the budget, let's not tax for more. Yes, there may be something else that we don't
There'll be
fix on
something that
alligator.
falls off.
Yeah, yeah.
Good catch.
I thought, yeah. Okay, so that's 7 off from the 23, so it's back to 15 on that particular project.
15,000, correct.
Yeah. And I'm fully, in fact, what I wouldn't mind is hearing if there are other potential discrete shovel-ready projects that we could be getting done, so we have them ready for dusting off when the big infrastructure money starts coming next year. And if they can be pointed at green projects, which means water and wastewater, so much the better, because that's what they're looking to fund. Okay, so can I have a motion, please, on the desired options, which is 2 and 3? Thanks, Fred. And a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? Carried. So that's going to go forward to council tonight. Is that correct? Okay. You'll remember that somehow? Do you have a method? Okay. We're moving on to 7B, nothing from the mayor. 7C, Council, Councillor McLaughlin, 2016 budget, Lions Bay Beach Region.
That can be tabled and held for the next budget discussion, because it's all.
Fine, because it's all somewhat
all
depending on
tied
lots of things.
together and,
You good with that?
We're playing cards on that one. Thanks.
Okay,
Ken.
thanks.
Yeah.
So we've done financial commentary previously. Committees? Fred? Helen?
No.
Full comment till tonight, I guess.
Fine. New biz? None? Public questions and comments? Adjournment. Motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned.
Should I have these?
So you don't take a second.